Hello and welcome to Real AI Now, a podcast about real applications of AI in business brought to you by TwoImpulse. My name is Marc Giombetti, I'm a product manager at TwoImpulse, and today I'm your host on Real AI Now. Today we are speaking about a very important and interesting topic in the AI space, namely data centers. As you know, data centers, they do power the digital economy. They are critical for all digital services and currently use around 1 to 2% of the worldwide electricity consumption with growing expectations. So all the AI models which are developed now need to run somewhere. And today we have a very special guest who's an expert in that field and can shed some light on data centers, technology trends, and their importance for the digital transformation. So before I introduce our guest, I would like to inform you that you can subscribe to this podcast. You should also like this episode if you like it. This podcast is available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts, and you will find the link for those in the description below. Now, I would like to say a very warm welcome to our guest, Rui Ribeiro. Hello, Rui.
Hello, Mark. How do you do?
Great, pleasure to have you here. So for our listeners, thank you. So Rui is the general manager of IP Telecom, one of the largest data center providers in Portugal. He has been a sales director in his career. He's a professor. He has a broad business as well as academic curriculum with an MBA, I think PhD from university and from the top colleges in Portugal and around the world. So thanks again, Rui, for joining us today.
Thank you.
And yeah, so to get started, so tell us a bit about the data center you're managing and the challenges you have these days as a general manager of one of the largest data centers in Portugal.
Well, Mark, thanks again for this invitation to be in here with you today. But just to speak a little about IP Telecom. IP Telecom is an enterprise telco and cloud service provider here in Portugal, just for the Portuguese market. Our core business is on the telco for the wholesale and retail for the telco operators in here, basically because we have the biggest high-speed networks on fiber optics in Portugal. So basically what we call a kind of highways of communications here in Portugal, so for the backbones for the telco operators, and this is one of our or the biggest business from our side. And we also have 3 data centers that are leveraging precisely this communication network, high-speed communication network, that are based in Lisbon, Oporto, and Viseu, which receive this availability of these networks that also and these networks also provide communications for the major telco providers, several industries here in Portugal, from healthcare, retail, factories, and several ones. Again, we are a 100% state-owned company, which means that we are focused precisely on the service, or the quality of the service, and we have a kind of mission also to improve the economy in Portugal. Okay, this is I would say one of our DNAs here to work
with the local economy
daily basis. Yeah. Okay, so this is I would say 2 minutes, what is IP Telecom. Okay.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for that. So in the recent years or so, we have now seen the rise of artificial intelligence and machine learning. I mean, the name of this podcast is Real AI Now, and this AI, let's say, models need to run somewhere. How has AI and machine learning changed requirements towards the data center? How do you see that evolve?
Well, the thing is that the digital world is speeding up everything. Okay, and the human resources, the human abilities and capabilities, they have, I would say, limitations, physical limitations. We only have 2 arms and 1 head, which means that we need to be focused, basically, and I'm not able to replicate myself. Okay, I have some kids, but that's they are still growing, and so on. So basically, the human resources, they have limited skills in terms of scalability. Saying this, the only thing that is able to scale is precisely also the technology inside the digital world. And in this market, in this data centers market, we need to assure that everything is up and running, and the automation is essential in order to be able not only to provide a good quality of service in the several layers, but also to be able to scale for new services, and even to be able to, I would say, anticipate some issues that might happen in the future. Okay, saying this, our teams, our infrastructures, they are being developed across a new set of architectures where the automations are built in. Okay, and these automations, they live throughout the data that they create, that they provide. And it's where, of course, the artificial intelligence and machine learning concepts through the AI are in, which means that our teams, they today have a set of tools that not only are able to, I would say, monitoring in a operational daily basis, but also that we have, I would say, the team managers and the planning teams on the several layers of the infrastructure that are using some AI tools, some machine learning concepts and softwares to help them to plan better in the future, and of course to anticipate some issues that might happen even in the hardware components that they have also a life cycle time frame. Okay.
So I hear two types of AI. So basically, one type of AI you are using actually to run your data center in a better way, right? To improve data security, avoid outages, I don't know, detect faulty hardware.
Today we are all only able to survive on the cybersecurity environment only with AI tools. Okay, it's an essential thing to have. Okay, this is an example. We also have today, and we are building some projects where our IoTs that we have in the networks, on the fiber optics, on the data centers itself, where we have more or less 8,000 IoT sensors that are providing data. And this kind of information not only provides immediate data in terms of operational tasks to do, but also anticipate, and even we try and we are surviving in an energy case today, and this information, it's quite important to improve our energy consumption, basically efficiency internally. Okay, this is where AI is getting in for sure.
Okay, yeah. So that's basically operationalizing the data center. I'm also curious about this AI-powered loads. So I'm thinking of, okay, training models with GPUs, right? And energy, let's say high energy consumption of these models. How has that changed in the way also the data center operates? So basically, do you see the AI loads your clients have in a way changing the type of servers they use, the type of application they run, the way you need to operate a data center?
Basically, it's what we are seeing is that the CPU and GPU processing needs, they are being higher than in the past. What we have done, and in here I would say that we have some competitive advantage because our recent re-architecture of the data centers infrastructure of our clouds is quite recent, which means that our servers, our hardware is also, I would say, the best of breeds in terms of hardware, and we see quite difference between the today's new infrastructure and the previous one in terms of new hardware, which means that we are not yet in the full speed of this infrastructure, but we are seeing a faster speed of consumption than in the past. Okay, and this is a new thing that we are seeing, and of course, I would say the clustering, the distribution of the processing across the several data centers is being higher than in the past, and we are seeing that for sure.
Okay. Would you say that this is due to intensifying the load? So we're thinking about virtualization, or do you also see a trend going back to bare metal for high compute use cases?
Well, in our case, it's virtualization. Okay. In our case, we don't work yet in the high performance computing, so we don't have that case internally. Our type of customers because we work, I would say, in a typical enterprise level, where the high performance computing here in Portugal, we are, I would say, a small country in Europe, and we in the market, besides some universities and some one or two companies, these requirements, they don't really exist in our market. In the virtualization, everything for us is virtualization. Even for with the new types of architecture for DevOps and so on, Kubernetes and those kind of trends that and technologies that are being built. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's very interesting. So basically, as you're in Portugal, you're the local provider for many corporates, as I understand it there. How do you position yourself compared to the, let's say, large cloud providers, which we know? What makes IP Telecom special, and where can you, I don't know, have this competitive advantage you mentioned, right? Yeah.
So one of the main competitive advantage is for sure the latency. Okay. And the latency, and because we focus on the critical systems for the corporate organizations, we focus on this kind of service, which means that the latency, just giving an example. We have a quite important customer that is one of the biggest companies in terms of exports, that has a factory in the center of Portugal, and their data center, which is ours, it's in the Oporto city, and the disaster recovery in Viseu. And they have their offices in Lisbon, which means they have a fully distributed architecture. And the only way that they are able to have this kind of architecture is precisely our competitive advantage of having our communications and engineering with the cloud service engineering. Okay, and this is quite important, and this is not yet, even with some edge computing technologies that the other, I would say, the hyper cloud providers they have. So this kind of solutions where the latency is crucial for the business is our main competitive advantage. Okay, this is quite important. Of course, the data sovereignty is also another important thing, and I would say that's this unfortunately war that we have in Europe as show what might happen in the future worldwide. I hope not, but it's a risk that the companies they need to understand, and even European Union is understanding this. And this data governance in terms of sovereignty is also important, because our customers, they know exactly, and I would say they can see with their eyes, they can visit our data centers where their information is. Okay, these kind of things. And of course, we also we are a Portuguese company working for Portugal and for companies that work in Portugal, and the language, it's always an important thing to work also.
Yeah, I think this is a strong case, right? To be less dependent on big tech and all the dependencies we see now, right, emerging in situation of crisis.
But have in mind that those hypercloud providers, they have other competitive advantage, of course, and they have advantage against us for several other cases. I'm just focusing in what are our competitive advantages, which are critical services across public administration, across critical factories, critical data, data sovereignty, these kind of things.
Yeah. So in essence, if basically, let's make a bit in an extreme scenario, Portugal gets disconnected from the internet, the local economy can still work, can still survive, can still operate factories. So you are not dependent on more geopolitical exposures.
I would say that today we have the proof that by somehow, hope not, it can happen. Okay. And let me just say that we also have 4 international connections directly with our fiber optics through for the Europe. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Speaking of Europe and data sovereignty and movements within Europe, what's your take on GaiaX, the European cloud initiative, or the initiative by the European Union? Are you involved in that? How do you see that involving? What's your thoughts on that?
We were the first Portuguese company, and we are a day one member of GaiaX also, precisely because we see that this data security and data sovereignty, it's quite important. Because the directive of open data, namely in the public administration, to leverage the economy, it's quite important. And we, as a 100% state-owned company, we are working for GaiaX in our country. What we have built what is and today is up and running GaiaX lab here in Portugal in order for the market to be able to develop applications. I would say in this stage, I would say a lab for free in order to for the several Portuguese companies, public administrations to work to build and to have capabilities to build the GaiaX concept in here. Okay.
Okay. I want to make a move back to the topic of artificial intelligence and AI. Yeah. We spoke a bit about how you're using it within the data center to, I don't know, defend against distributed denial of service attacks, to improve data security, avoid outages, or to spot defects. I also wanted to link this again to the energy consumption. So you said, okay, you're actively working on also making use of this, let's say, data coming out of this network of IoT sensors to better understand current operations. Can you give our listeners a couple of thoughts about what are the surprising things you discovered on their journey? What were the aha effects, and how do you plan to expand this in the future?
So what we have done in the recent month and last year, as I would say, our main investment was in the last few years. We basically what we have done some years ago was to be sure and to install an infrastructure with a partner and a tool that was able to address everything in terms of operational management in the several data centers. Reason why I told you previously, where we had 8,000 sensors, namely on the energy side. What we have done even with two Impulse teams was precisely to start a set of proof of concepts in order to understand the data, in order to not only to know the past, but also to predict the future and to control the future. Saying this, we understood that, for instance, we were able to control, I would say, with the outside temperature, to be more efficient and to reduce the internal consumption in terms of energy. And the first results were quite interesting because we understand that with this proactive way of doing things, not only what we were doing in terms of controlling what is happening in the future, but predicting the future, if we applied in the past some rules, we were able to reduce more or less 20%, 20 to 30% the energy consumption, which in these days is quite important. Okay. So what we are doing today is to create predictive analysis, predictive models, in order to address and to, I would say, align in a kind of dynamic way of doing things. All the management in the first stage for the energy, but in the second stage, we will go to the overall infrastructure of the data center, from the communications to the servers and so on. So we are improving this knowledge internally also, because we are a company with 22 years old, and we need also to change some culture, I would say traditional culture, in order to for the teams to understand the benefits of this new proactive and dynamical way of doing things. Not which means that we should not work only on the typical process that is already defined from the past. We need to change it and to be more, I would say, mind open to test these new technologies, and it's what we are doing.
Okay, so you're really using like a data-driven approach where you see, okay, what's actually happening, and then doing the right things for that scenario you're currently in, and not just sticking, let's say, to a strict process, but using data to actually steer in the direction.
And to understand what are really the variables that might I would say might be more influence on these needs of this efficiency. Just for you to understand, there is a simple example where when we have made a test in some, I would say, analysis of some system of the air, of the free cooling of the data centers, where the operational environment says everything is green, but the speeds of lowering the temperature was not as fast as it should be, which means that with that analysis of that, I would say, data science analysis, we understood that there was some part of the free cooling that was not working well.
Okay. So just to our listeners who don't know the concept of free cooling, so free cooling is the idea that when temperatures outside drop below a certain degree, right, you're taking the air from the outside to cool the server rooms, right?
Yeah.
So what you're saying, there was like a kind of a filter which was stuck, or the airflow was not going.
That was not fast enough. That's I would say that the temperature was lowering, but it was not so fast enough that I would say in the human eyes it was normal. But it showed us that there was a problem in a compressor in the free cooling system, which means that we anticipate a possible future issue, and with a normal substitution of that infrastructure.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, the exciting thing I hear there, and I know a couple of people from Twimpulse, they work on a particular project, so we exchanged. I think it's this idea, right, that you can apply this retrofit. The data center is there.
Yeah.
You have solutions, and you can make better use of the equipment and everything you have, right? Maybe you would do that differently when you build a new data center, but the one you have, right, it's really tweaking out the best you can do and optimizing all the different parameters you have.
And we have the data. The thing is that when you have a digital environment in any kind of company, because today probably almost everything it has some kind of digital fingerprint, it means that we have data inside our company. We need to have a data analysis in order to understand better what is happening, and that's what we are doing. We have not, after, I would say, the operational layer, we are investing in this strategical layer in the several areas of our business, of course.
Okay, yeah. So basically, okay, in the current situation with kind of like exploding energy prices, right? So I don't know, saving energy, that point is crucial, right? Because that's real money you can save, which is eating into the margin, etc. But on one side, it's also, okay, you still need energy, right? I think the topic of sustainable compute is also an interesting one. So low carbon energy, and how can you scale? Because like the digital economy is growing, right? Like there's going to be the need for more compute capacity over time. How do you make sustainable compute happen? Like, okay, on one side saving.
Let me tell you one thing. So we need, and we are on the technology in a technology environment. And just for you to understand, in the last year, we've changed our data hardware routers and switches and so on. And in some cases, we lower 70 to 80% of energy consumption.
Oh, wow, that's a lot, yeah.
Okay. Why? Because we need from time to time to keep investing on new technologies that are, of course, more energy efficient. They have energy efficiency better than the previous ones. On the server side, exactly the same. So the servers are quite thinner than the previous ones. So this kind of investments, it's one of our focus also. Because the energy is going higher, we don't know yet where it will stop. And we need to keep working in several sides of the table, okay? With the data, with the hardware updates, with the software updates. So we have several threads working. And the interesting thing is that we look to the past and we compare things and we see where we are and where we were. And if we didn't do nothing, what would happen for us.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So as we are slowly getting to the end of our discussion, I have one last question for you. If you would have one wish, what the data center of the future could look like in, let's say, 10 years, what would it be?
Well, futurology, it's a kind of astrology. I'm used to say that in the technology side, after 6 months, we start to get in the astrology world. But what I'm seeing in terms of trends is, of course, to have modular, I would say, buildings that can grow, that can be able to scale, that can be able to be moved to other places and so on. So
like in a container, data center in a container.
Containers, it's one trend. There are other things that are being in researches, but these kind of things of modular cases, which means that I don't see the future of data centers as we had in the past, which was to build a big building, but to have, I would say, a place where we will build some, where we put some blocks, and we had blocks, and we reduce blocks according. It's a kind of, it's like the clouds in terms of software. The data center facilities are being built in terms of blocks for growing, to scale also, but they are being able to also to be moved for outside of the place that they were built. These kind of things are being discussed, and I see that this might be a future trend on the data centers.
Okay, so a bit having more this distributed, as we also see with distributed ledger-based applications. So let's say there's going to be more distribution in data centers. I'm thinking also of things, you gave me the idea, right? Yeah. Okay, maybe I have an analytical workload which takes a lot of time to compute. Maybe that can be in a kind of like cheaper region where electricity is maybe more affordable, or if I have these high-end transactional use cases, they would be more, I don't know, closer to the city where the companies are, and giving that proximity.
Yeah, because you have two layers, Mark, you have two layers, the physical one and the logical one. So you can, I would say, change immediately those computations across where you need. So that's what we see.
Okay. Well, I must say so. Thank you for the very interesting discussion, Rui. So I learned a couple of new things. Thanks for joining me on the Real AI Now podcast. And
thank you,
to our
Mark.
listeners,
thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And to our listeners, a short reminder. So if you like this episode, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and you will find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. So with that, thanks, Rui, and have a great day, everyone.
Bye.